You stupid girl, wake up and go into the forest and fetch me firewood.
Mother, it is night and nobody has ever gone into the forbidden forest and come back alive.
Uche, go into the forest and fetch firewood now.
Mother, it is night.
Mother, please, I beg you. Mother, please don't let me die. Come, Uche, we must go.
No, please let me go.
It's too late. We have to.
I'm scared. Mother, please, it's the forbidden forest. People don't return from there.
Then don't return. Good riddance.
Mother, please, I don't want to die.
Go and fetch firewood. Uche froze. The words struck her chest like a stone. She turned slowly, her eyes wide with fear. Mother, it is night. Her voice was small, shaking. Njideka's face changed instantly. Her lips tightened. Her eyes became cold. Are you questioning me? She asked, her voice low and dangerous. Uche's heart pounded. Double quotes, no, Mother. I was only saying. Njideka did not let her finish. She grabbed her arm violently. You have suddenly found your voice? She snapped. Uche winced in pain. Mother, please. It is the forbidden forest. People don't return from there. Njideka leaned closer, her grip tightening. Then don't return, she whispered, her voice filled with wickedness. Before Uche could react, Njideka dragged her across the compound. The night wind howled as if begging her to run. But there was nowhere to run. They reached the edge of the forbidden forest. Darkness stood before them like an open mouth waiting to swallow. Uche's legs refused to move. Mother, please, I beg you, she cried, tears rolling down her face. Njideka's response was a hard push. Uche stumbled forward. Her feet crossed into the forest. She turned back immediately. Mother, Njideka stood there, her face filled with cruel satisfaction. Then she laughed, a dry, heartless laugh. Good riddance. She turned and walked away without looking back. Certain Uche would die. Uche stood alone, surrounded by darkness and silence that felt alive. Before we go into the story to find out why Uche's stepmother sent her into the forbidden forest to fetch firewood at night, kindly hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. Then sit back as I take you through this old forgotten tale told by elders. The night Uche was born, the sky wept. The rain fell heavily on the roofs of every hut, as if the heavens already knew the child would arrive with a price inside a small trembling hut. Ngozi screamed. Her voice tore through the night like cloth being ripped apart. Hold on, the midwife urged. Push, Ngozi, push. Outside, her husband, Okeke, walked back and forth. His hands were shaking. He was a strong man, the richest farmer anyone knew. But that night, he was just a helpless husband listening to his wife fight for her life. Then suddenly a cry filled the air. The cry of a child. Okeke froze. His face lit up with hope. But something was wrong. The midwife did not come out immediately. The crying of the baby continued. But Ngozi's voice was gone. The door opened slowly. The midwife stepped out. Her face was heavy. Okeke's heart began to race. My wife, he asked. Is she alive? The midwife could not speak. She only shook her head. No. Okeke felt his legs give way beneath him. He fell to the ground. The rain soaked his body, but he did not feel it. The midwife placed the baby in his arms. She is a girl, she said softly. Okeke looked down at the tiny face. The child was beautiful. She was innocent. She knew nothing of the pain her arrival had caused. Tears rolled down Okeke's face and fell onto the baby's forehead. He forced a smile through his pain. "You will live," he whispered. "You will live for both of you." He held her tightly. "Your name is Uche. Wisdom." Because that night, he would need wisdom to survive his loss. And from that day, Okeke became both father and mother to the child who arrived with death. Okeke did not sleep that night. He sat beside Ngozie's lifeless body and the child who had taken her place. He did not blame the child. He could not. She was all he had left. The baby cried. He carried her gently, his large farmer's hands trembling. "I am here," he whispered. "I will not abandon you." From that day, Okeke became everything. Father, mother, protector. He named her Uche, wisdom, because he knew he would need wisdom to raise her alone. Okeke never remarried. He refused every advice, every pressure, every pleading word from villagers who told him a man needed a wife to survive. He would only shake his head and say quietly, "I already have everything I need." Everything he needed was Uche. He carried her on his back to the farm while the morning sun rose behind them. Her tiny arms would wrap around his neck while he worked. She would laugh whenever he pretended to chase goats away. He fed her himself, blowing gently on hot food before placing it in her mouth. "Slowly, my daughter," he would say with a smile. He bathed her himself too, carefully pouring water on her small body, as if she were made of clay that could break. He was not just her father. He was her whole world. And he taught her something important. One day, little Uche sat beside him under a tree. She watched as workers carried baskets of food. She watched as other children passed by with nothing. She looked up at him innocently. "Papa, why do we have more food than others?" Okeke looked at her. His heart softened. He smiled. He pulled her closer. "My daughter, wealth does not make you better than anyone." He placed his hand gently on her chest. "What makes you better is here." Uche looked down at herself, then back at him. She did not fully understand, but she nodded. She trusted him. As the years passed, Uche grew. She grew humble. She grew kind. She grew respectful. She greeted everyone. She helped everyone. She never spoke with pride. Everyone loved her. Even old Mama Niem, who sold roasted corn by the roadside, would hold her hand and say proudly, "This child will save someone one day." People would laugh when she said it. They thought it was just the words of an old woman. Nobody knew how true those words were. Years passed. Quiet mornings and busy days filled Okeke and Uche's lives. The farm grew larger. Uche grew taller and wiser. But the villagers never stopped talking. "A man cannot live alone forever," they would whisper, shaking their heads. They meant well, or so they said. Every time Okeke heard it, he would frown and shake his head, stroking his beard as if the very idea made him uncomfortable. But even he knew time changes everything. Even the richest heart can feel lonely. One evening, after long thought and silent contemplation, Okeke gathered the courage to marry again. He chose carefully. Her name was Njideka. She was beautiful. Her skin glowed like polished clay. Her eyes gentle and calm. She spoke softly, each word like a drop of water landing gently on the earth. Everyone said she was kind. Everyone admired her grace. When she first stepped into the home, even the house itself seemed lighter, as if it approved of her presence. She knelt before Uche, smiling warmly, her hands reaching out slowly. "My daughter," she said, her voice smooth like silk, full of promise and care. Uche looked up at her, her small heart full of curiosity. She studied Njideka's face, searching for truth, for signs of deceit. But she saw none. She stepped forward and hugged her gently. her trust overflowing. She wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe that her life would have another loving figure, another mother to watch over her. But that very trust, that innocent hope, was the first mistake she would ever make in her life. The house seemed to hold its breath as Njideka smiled down at her, her hands lingering softly on Uche's shoulders, while the sun set behind the farm casting long shadows, unaware that darkness had already begun to creep quietly into the heart of the home. Years passed. Njideka gave birth to 3 boys, Obina, Somto, Chibwez, and a girl, Amarachi. At first, the house seemed full of life. The babies cried and laughed. The compound echoed with small footsteps and coos. Uche tried to help, gently rocking Amarachi, carrying her brothers, eager to be a good sister. But slowly everything changed. Njideka's smiles toward Uche became rare. Her voice, once soft, now carried a sharpness that cut like a knife. She would scold quietly. "Uche, do not fumble with my children. Do you want them to grow like goats in the bush?" Uche lowered her eyes. "I am sorry, mother. I am only trying to help." Njideka's lips curved into a smile that was not warm. "Help? You call that help? Do it properly, or don't do it at all. And remember your place. You are nothing here but a servant." Her words were quiet, but dangerous. Every glance, every step Njideka took in the house reminded Uche that love had turned cold. The warmth she once felt was gone, replaced by something poisonous. And though Uche continued to serve her stepmother and care for her siblings, she now carried the weight of fear in every action. It was subtle, silent, yet deadly. Njideka hated her not loudly, but quietly, dangerously. And Uche, small and humble, already knew that the hardest days of her life were only beginning. Uche became the housemaid. She cooked, she cleaned, she washed, she fetched water. Even when her head throbbed from fever, even when her stomach ached, she worked silently. The house was never quiet. The boys ran through the compound, breaking things, stealing small trinkets, while little Amarechi sat on a mat, her hands idle, her clothes dirty. One morning Njideka called sharply, "Amarachi, go and bathe." The girl shook her head and pouted. "I don't know how." She was already 12. Njideka laughed, a cold, sharp laugh that cut through the air. "Uche, come and bathe your sister." Uche froze, staring at her stepmother. "Me? Are you deaf?" Njideka snapped. Uche swallowed hard. Her hands trembled, but she went to Amarachi. She poured water, rubbed the soap gently on her stepsister's skin, guiding her tiny hands, holding back tears of frustration and pain. The neighbors whispered when they saw her. "This is not good," they murmured. "The poor girl works like a slave while the other children do nothing." And in the silent corners of the compound, Uche realized her life had changed. She was no longer just a daughter. She was a servant in her own home. Njideka's sons were worse. They stole everything. Yams from the barns, goats from the pens, chickens from the neighbors. Even clothes hung out to dry. No one could stop them. No one dared. One day, driven by mischief and greed, they crept into Okori's compound. Okori was feared in the village, a man whose anger could crush men like dry sticks. They took yams, a few chickens, and even a goat before anyone saw them. But this time, they were caught. Okori's men seized them, dragging them through the village. Their cries echoed, "Stop! Stop!" Obina, Somto, and Chibwez screamed. The villagers watched silently, pity and fear mixing in their eyes. When they were brought home, Okeke's face went pale. He could not speak. He looked at his sons, his own blood covered in dirt, humiliated, shivering with fear. "My sons, thieves," he whispered. His voice cracked. Tears ran down his cheeks. He could not bear it. The shame, the betrayal, the helplessness, it was too much. That night, he could not eat. He could not sleep. He sat alone in the courtyard, staring at the stars, praying silently, holding Uche close. But grief and heartbreak weighed him down like stones. And as the night grew deeper, his body could take no more. He collapsed, alone, silent, cold, and by the time the morning sun rose, Okeke was dead. The house that once held warmth now held only fear, sorrow, and the shadow of cruelty yet to come. At the burial, Uche cried the loudest. Her sobs tore through the air, shaking her tiny body. She knew. Her shield was gone. The man who had protected her, who had loved her unconditionally, was gone. Njideka did not cry. She stood at the edge of the gathering, silent, watching. Her eyes cold, like a snake watching the rain, calculating, waiting. That night, the house was quiet, except for the fire crackling. Uche was arranging the little things her father had left behind when Njideka appeared behind her. Without warning, she raised her hand and slapped Uche across the face. For bringing bad luck. Njideka spat, her voice sharp and cruel. Uche stumbled and fell to the floor. Pain shot through her cheek. She looked up, tears mixing with the sting, but no one stopped her. Not a word, not a hand, not even a whisper of comfort. Her heart pounded, her small chest ached. That night, lying alone, she realized it. Her suffering had just begun. The warmth, the protection, the love all gone. And in its place, darkness. One night Njideka smiled strangely. Her lips curved, but it was not a warm smile. Her eyes glinted with something dark. "Go and fetch firewood," she said. Uche froze. Her heart skipped a beat. "It is night," she whispered, her voice trembling. Njideka's face hardened. Her voice became sharp, cold. "Are you questioning me?" Uche shook her head, but before she could speak again, Njideka grabbed her roughly. She dragged her across the compound, her grip like iron, and then pushed her forward. Uche stumbled into the darkness of the forbidden forest. The trees loomed around her like silent watchers. Nobody returned from there. Uche turned back, panic in her eyes. "Mother, please." Njideka stood at the edge of the forest, her expression calm, cruel. Then she laughed. A dry, heartless laugh that echoed through the night. "Good riddance," she said. She turned and walked home, her back straight, her mind certain. Uche would die and Njideka would finally be free of her. Alone in the forest, Uche's small body trembled. The night was thick, the silence heavy, and the fear of the unknown pressed against her chest. This was the night her courage would be tested, and her life would change forever. Uche cried. Her tears fell freely, mixing with the cold night air. She walked slowly, each step heavy, shivering from fear and exhaustion. The forest pressed around her, dark and silent, every shadow a threat. Then, through the thick trees she saw her. An old woman, bent with age, struggling under a heavy load of firewood. The woman's hands shook as she tried to balance the weight. Without thinking, Uche ran to her. "Grandmother, let me help you," she said, her voice trembling but firm. The old woman looked at her carefully, eyes sharp despite her age. "Why?" she asked, her voice weak but questioning. "Because you need help," Uche replied, panting slightly, her small hands reaching out to take the load. She did not know it then. But in helping this woman, she was touching destiny itself. Something unseen, something powerful, had begun to notice her. The old woman took Uche to her small hut hidden deep in the forest. The fire crackled softly. filling the dark space with warmth. She fed Uche simple food, hot and comforting, and listened patiently as the girl poured out her story. Her father's death, her stepmother's cruelty, the forest, everything. When Uche finished, the old woman reached into a small pouch and pulled out a bracelet. Small, ordinary looking. She held it out gently. "Speak to it when danger comes," she said. Uche hesitated, shaking her head. "I cannot take this," she whispered, fear and pride mingling in her voice. The old woman smiled, eyes soft but knowing. "You already paid for it with kindness," she said. Her words settled over Uche like a gentle wind. Finally, Uche accepted the bracelet. She did not know then that her life had changed. Forever. That small, ordinary bracelet held a power she could not yet see, but it would protect her in ways she had never imagined. Morning came. The first pale rays of sunlight seeped through the trees and touched the edge of the compound. Birds chirped faintly, unaware of the terror of the night. Uche emerged from the forest, her small body tired, her feet dusty and scratched from the underbrush. She carried the bundle of firewood tightly in her arms. Her hands were raw. Her legs ached. Her heart still trembled from the darkness she had walked through. Slowly, cautiously, she approached the house. Every step felt heavy, like walking on broken glass. The familiar walls that had once been a home now seemed cold, dangerous, filled with memories of fear. Njideka was sweeping the courtyard when she saw her. Her eyes caught the movement before her mind could process it. Her face paled. Her broom slipped from her hands, falling to the ground with a sharp crack. Her lips parted. Her hands froze mid-air. "You?" she screamed, her voice high and sharp, piercing the morning calm. Uche stopped. She looked at her stepmother, her chest rising and falling slowly, holding her fear steady. She did not answer. She only stood there, clutching the firewood, silent but unbroken. Njideka took a step back, her knees weak, her body trembling. Her mind raced. She had pushed Uche into the forbidden forest, certain she would never return. She had imagined the girl's screams echoing through the trees, imagined her being swallowed by darkness, imagined freedom from her stepdaughter's presence. And now here she was, alive, standing, smiling faintly, though her eyes betrayed exhaustion and fear. For the first time, Njideka felt real fear cold, sharp, and crawling through her chest. Her heart pounded. Her throat tightened. She could not move, could not speak. The power she had wielded over Uche felt gone. In its place was a shadow she did not understand. Uche tilted her head slightly. "Good morning, mother," she said softly, her voice calm, almost gentle. Njideka's scream caught in her throat. She had never been called mother like that before, with no fear, no trembling. Uche had survived the forest. And somehow, Njideka knew that nothing, no cruelty, no anger would ever feel the same again. The courtyard was silent, except for the small rustle of leaves. And in that silence, the first seeds of dread took root in Njideka's heart. The next day, Njideka was waiting. Her face was set, her eyes cold, her lips pressed tightly together. Uche had carried water, fed the chickens, and cleaned the floor as usual. But Njideka's patience had run out. Without warning, she grabbed a broom and raised her hand sharply. "Uche, I will teach you your place," she shouted, her voice full of anger. Uche's heart thumped violently. She did not flinch. She did not cry out. She lifted her small hand to the bracelet on her wrist. Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling but steady. "Help me." The moment the words left her lips, something happened. Njideka's hand froze mid-air. Her fingers twitched, her arms stiff as wood. She tried to move, to strike, to shove, but it would not obey her. Her eyes widened in terror. What is this? She screamed, panic rising in her throat. She pulled, she struggled, she stamped her feet. But an invisible force held her fast, stronger than anything she had ever known. Uche stepped back slowly, calm despite her fear, her eyes fixed on the woman who had tormented her for years. Stop, Uche whispered softly. I will not hurt you. Njideka's screams turned shrill, piercing the morning air. She fell to the ground, her body trembling violently, tears streaming down her face. She clawed at the invisible force, but it would not release her. She cried, she gasped, she begged silently for it to let go. But nothing worked. The house seemed to hold its breath. Even the animals stopped their noise. For the first time, the cruel, proud Njideka felt powerless. She looked at Uche, small, fragile, unarmed, and her heart filled with a fear she could not name. From that day forward, Njideka feared Uche. Every glance, every step, every small movement of the girl reminded her of the power she could not see, could not control, could not fight. The woman who had once ruled the house with anger and cruelty now walked carefully, her voice softer, her hands trembling when Uche passed by. And Uche, though still humble and kind, felt a new strength growing inside her. A strength not of muscle or wealth, but of something far greater. Something invisible. Something that would protect her when no one else could. The house was quiet that evening, but the air had changed. Fear now lived beside cruelty, and cruelty knew it could no longer strike freely. One night, when the house was quiet and the moonlight barely touched the dusty floor, Njideka crept toward Uche's small wrist. Her eyes glinted with anger. She had never forgotten the fear the girl had caused her, the way the invisible force had humiliated her in front of everyone. Tonight, she decided she would destroy it. She grabbed a small knife, her fingers shaking, and aimed for the bracelet. Suddenly slap, her head jerked sharply to the side. Pain shot through her cheek. She screamed, stumbling backward. Who hit me? She shouted, her voice cracking in panic. She spun around, looking for an intruder, her eyes wide and frantic. But the house was empty. The shadows seemed to watch her, silent and unblinking. She ran to the doorway, the knife dropping from her hand. There is a spirit in this house, she shouted, her voice echoing into the night. The neighbors, already awake from the commotion, gathered at the edge of the compound. Some leaned on their fences, trying not to laugh, while others whispered among themselves, eyes glinting with amusement. One old man chuckled, shaking his head. Maybe it slapped sense into you, he said loudly, his laughter rolling through the compound. The villagers joined in, their laughter mixing with the wind, carrying the sound into the darkness. Njideka's face turned pale. She looked at the bracelet, glinting softly on Uche's wrist, and she knew. She would never touch it again. Fear had finally settled deep inside her. From that night onward, every glance at Uche reminded her of the invisible power she could not fight, the power that had humbled her completely. And Uche's small, quiet and humble smiled faintly to herself, holding her bracelet. She did not need to speak. She did not need to strike. The force of her kindness and courage was already stronger than any anger Njideka could muster. From that day, the house was different. Njideka no longer dared to raise a hand. Even her heart, filled with hate, now trembled whenever Uche moved. And in the shadows of that quiet night, a new order had been set, one no human cruelty could ever overturn. His name was Chike. Brave, strong, and handsome. A young man known in the village for his skill with the bow and the courage in his heart. Yet he was nothing like the others who chased wealth or power. From the moment he met Uche, he saw her, not the house, not the small wealth her father had left, not the title of the richest man's daughter. He saw her heart. He watched her laugh softly as she fed a goat, watched her hands gently tend to the chickens, watched her eyes shine when she helped a neighbor. And one day, under the bright sun, he told her quietly, "Uche, your heart, it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I do not love wealth. I do not care for gold or lands. I love you." Uche's cheeks warmed. Her small lips trembled. "Chike," she whispered, barely daring to believe it. He smiled, taking her hands in his. "I will protect you. I will honor you. I will be yours, not for your wealth, but for who you are." The village celebrated. And finally, they married. The ceremony was simple, yet filled with joy. Neighbors clapped, women sang, and children ran through the compound, throwing flowers in their path. Uche walked beside Chike, her small hand entwined with his strong one, feeling safe, loved, and finally free. Njideka watched from the corner of the courtyard, her eyes narrowed, lips tight, fists clenched. Jealousy twisted her heart like a dark vine. She had wanted power, fear, control over Uche, yet here she was helpless. Uche, the girl she had tormented for years, was now loved openly by a man stronger than any force she could summon. She said nothing. She could not. The invisible power that had protected Uche still hummed quietly in the house. Every glance she cast at the newlyweds reminded her that her cruelty had failed. And in that moment, Njideka realized she had lost, not wealth, not children, not even her pride, but control over the one heart she had tried to break. Meanwhile, Uche's own heart soared. She had found love, true and steady, and for the first time in her life, she felt that nothing, not fear, not cruelty, not darkness, could touch her. And Chike, brave and strong, held her close, whispering, "Together, we will build a life no evil can destroy." The house, once filled with shadow and dread, seemed to breathe a little lighter that day. Uche had found her happiness. And Njideka could only watch powerless, consumed by envy. Uche never forgot the small bracelet the old woman had given her. Quietly, in the nights when the moon hung low and the world seemed still, she whispered to it, asking for guidance, for protection, for blessing. Slowly, silently, the power within it worked. Chike's hands, once only strong, now found opportunity. His hunts were fruitful. His trades prospered. His skill and courage multiplied into wealth. Gold and grains, livestock and lands, all seemed to come to them as if the forest itself blessed their home. They married, and soon the house rang with the sounds of children. A son, Ifeni, strong and curious like his father. A daughter, Adaze, gentle and bright, her laughter like sunlight through the windows. Uche held them close, feeling the warmth of their small bodies, their tiny hands gripping hers, their hearts beating fast with trust and love. Their home, once only a dream to her, became a place filled with joy. Laughter echoed through the rooms, spilling into the courtyard, chasing away the shadows of the past. Peace settled like a soft blanket over their lives. Chike would smile at her in the mornings, brushing her hair gently, whispering, "We are blessed, my heart. All because of you." And Uche, humble as ever, would smile back. She remembered the pain, the cruelty, the years of loneliness, and yet now, surrounded by love, by life, she understood the power of kindness, the strength of patience, and the unseen force that had always protected her. Everything she had never had, the warmth of a safe home, the laughter of children, the love of a devoted husband, the respect of her world was finally hers. And she cherished it with every heartbeat, every breath, knowing that no darkness, no hatred, no envy could touch what she had earned through courage, heart, and a touch of magic from a small, ordinary bracelet. Obinna, Sumto, and Chibwez grew older, but nothing changed in their hearts. They became more reckless, bolder, careless. The village whispered of their deeds: yams stolen from barns, chickens taken from neighbors, goats gone without a trace. They were no longer just mischievous boys. They were legendary thieves, known across the village and beyond. They were beaten by farmers, humiliated in the market, dragged through the streets by angry villagers. Every day brought a new disgrace. Every misstep made them a target. Hunters and men with clubs followed them, trying to catch them, to stop their chaos. But the boys only laughed, as if daring the world to stop them. And Amarachi, little Amarachi, the girl Njideka had doted on so foolishly, remained useless. Still dirty, still lazy, still helpless. She refused to learn even the simplest of tasks, sitting on mats while the housework piled around her. She cried when told to fetch water, whined when told to sweep, and pouted when asked to wash herself. The villagers avoided her, shook their heads at her, muttering, "What use is she? Nobody wants her." Njideka, meanwhile, lived in regret. Each night she would stare at the empty corners of the house, thinking of what she had lost. Her cruelty, her hatred for Uche, her obsession with control, it had eaten her future. Her children had become outcasts, dishonored, infamous. Her daughter remained a useless burden. And Njideka, once proud and feared, now felt only the gnawing emptiness of her mistakes. She had tried to rule with fear, but fear does not build a life, it destroys it. And now she saw, too late, that the kindness she had scorned, the girl she had tormented, the power she had mocked, all had outlasted her wickedness. The village spoke quietly of her now, not with laughter, not with respect, but with pity. And Njideka, sitting alone in the cold rooms that had once been filled with ambition and control, realized that the very evil she had nurtured had returned to devour her dreams. Uche never took revenge. Never once did she think to repay cruelty with cruelty, hatred with hatred, spite with spite. Even as she watched her stepmother cower, even as she saw her brothers humiliated and hunted, even as her stepsister remained useless and neglected, she felt no joy in their suffering. She chose peace. She chose calm. She chose the quiet strength that had carried her through every dark night and every sharp word, because kindness had saved her. Not fear, not power, not anger. It was the gentle touch of her hands, the patience in her heart, the willingness to help even when no one would help her. She remembered the old woman in the forest, bent and burdened, and how she had lifted her load without question, without reward. That moment had been the beginning of everything. The bracelet did not change her life. It did not make her wealthy. It did not shield her from hardship. It did not strike fear into those who had once tormented her. The bracelet was small, ordinary looking, a simple charm, but it revealed what was already inside her. Her courage, her compassion, her steadfast heart. That invisible power, the one that held Njideka's hand, that protected her in the forest, that made Chike's wealth flow it, only existed because Uche herself existed, pure and unbroken. She would hold her children close, whisper to them, teach them to be humble, teach them to be kind, teach them that strength was not measured by fists or fear, but by the heart. And every day when she looked at her husband, her son, her daughter, she remembered what had truly saved her. Kindness, she whispered softly one evening, touching her bracelet, is stronger than all the darkness in the world. And with that, Uche smiled, peaceful, whole, knowing that she had chosen not revenge, not bitterness, but a life built on love, mercy, and unwavering heart. That choice, more than any magic, had made her life beautiful.